Hi, thanks so much for having me. So, as you mentioned, GDP came out to be 2.4% for the second quarter for the US. That's up from 2% in the first quarter. And this is great news. It welcomed to the surprise. And it's painting a picture of the US economy as being quite resilient, as you mentioned. And this is coming, it's not just GDP, it's a bunch of other macroeconomic indicators as well. It's PCE, which is also coming down. It's CPI, which is coming down. Those measures of inflation. Inflation is cooling. We also have a robust labor market. The US unemployment rate is still quite low. And then consumer spending continues to prop up the economy and continues to be quite strong compared to what people might have expected earlier this year.
I want to pick up some commentary from the Fed Chair Jerome Powell last Wednesday. And one of the things he said is for them to be convinced that inflation is on a path to be sustainably back to 2%, they would need to see below trend growth, firstly, and second of all, more weakness show up on the labor side of things. We've got a key jobs figure coming up this Friday. If that does show, again, signs of resilience, does that tell you that perhaps the Fed may not be done with their tightening cycle?
So, Fed Chair Jerome Powell did emphasize quite a hawkish stance actually at the last meeting that they'll do anything to get inflation down to 2% from 3%. And the jobs market is quite strong, and that's good for consumers. It's good for workers, but it could be concerning for the Fed if it continues to be a little too strong. Wage growth is actually running higher than inflation at this point. And wages are also quite important in terms of services. So wages are a big cost for services inflation, and core services inflation, excluding housing, is one portion of inflation that the Fed continues to emphasize as a key measure to see how inflation is doing and if it's actually coming down and it's coming down fast enough. So depending on how labor market numbers come out in the coming weeks, we could see the Fed become even more hawkish and more worried about getting inflation down to that 2% level.